Prick up your earballs. It's time for the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and it's X Games week. Athletes will make their annual pilgrimage to Aspen to compete in the biggest show in action sports. And my guest this week is Aaron Blunk. It's the first time I've had a competition guy on the show in a while, and I couldn't have picked a better guest, as Aaron is full of personality, he doesn't hold anything back, and he is on fire this season. While I am not on fire this month, one thing Aaron and I do have in common is that we are each owners of French Bulldogs. While we don't talk about it on the show, if I sound really tired on this intro, it's because I am. I barely sleep anymore as my puppy Chief snores louder than any human I've ever heard, and I get about 3 hours of sleep a night. I know we should put him back in his crate, but he's so damn cute. Did I just talk about my dog? Sorry about that. What I should be doing is asking you to do a few things for me. First, please follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement. Second, tell your friends about the show. Third, email me with any questions, concerns, or sponsorship inquiries. My email is mike@thepowellmovement.com. And finally, please support my amazing sponsors who make the show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk with two-time Olympian and 2017 X Games gold medalist, Aaron Blunk.
What up, boss?
Not too much, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, man. How's the hill?
Oh, it was so good. We got like 6 inches, a little bit more. It was good.
Where are you skiing out of right now?
I'm just in Summit right now. We're doing like a team camp over here, but it's been snowing the past couple days, so we kind of just been shredding some pow.
Nice. I've seen a lot of stuff going on in Colorado, and it looks like lift line after lift line after lift line. Do you get to cut those being at a team camp?
Most of the time, we go to Copper. And so it's not normally as packed at Copper. And like most of the time we're hiking laps. So it's not too bad. But then if we go to Breck or anything, we go up early morning and have the lift spinning an hour earlier so that we can get in and get out pretty quick before it gets pretty heavy. But other than that, we don't really have any special things this year. Olympic years, they do a big camp and have snowmobile laps and everything like that, but they have way more budget during those seasons than these kind of seasons, you know?
Yep. Have you noticed a lot more people on the hill? I mean, because I see the pictures of lift lines, but you're out in Summit County. Have you seen them in person?
Oh, for sure, yeah. When I used to live over here, the lift lines used to just be full madhouse, but nowadays I think a lot of people are kind of getting the hint to go to A Basin or Keystone because it's 25, 30 minutes closer than Breck when you're coming from Denver.
Yep.
So the Front Range crew is definitely going there a bunch, but a lot of people have started to buy the Icon Pass because it's kind of a better deal. And you can go to Winter Park, Copper, all those zones. So I heard Winter Park's like really starting to blow up.
And that's one of those places that used to kind of be a little bit sleepy, I feel like.
For sure. Without a doubt. And then like I talk to Burke Irving all the time, and he's like, dude, like every weekend you can tell it's getting busier and busier, which is crazy.
And when we started talking about doing this podcast, I reached out to you and I think about August, and I wasn't planning on having too many contest guys on the podcast this season. And that wasn't really calculated. I just had a ton of other folks that I wanted to get in the mix.
Totally.
But for some reason, I had a feeling that this was going to be a huge year for you. And I don't know what made me think that, but I was like, I'm going to get Blunk on the podcast. It's going to be a huge year for him. And the original date of our interview was going to be 3 days before you won your first comp this year. And then a couple weeks later, you go and take second place at the Dew Tour.
Yeah.
So you have to be mentally in a perfect place right now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the beginning of this year, I was down in New Zealand, and Peter Olenick, which I'd kind of been working with a little bit under the radar just because he was doing the whole Korean coach thing. And so he was contracted with Korea, so he couldn't really coach anyone else. But nowadays, he is contracted for like just events and camp. Like he's not hired full time. So that's honestly perfect because he took a little bit of a pay cut being contracted, but he makes that up because now he can coach some kids from Aspen and he's coaching me. And so we met up in New Zealand, and I had used him a little bit in previous seasons and like gone and worked with him a couple days. But then I got to the point where I was like, yeah, like it's time to make the change. I love the US team and I love Andy Woods and I loved Ben Verge, and I do love Mike Riddle, who's now the new coach.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's Mike Riddle and Andy Woods as well nowadays rather than Andy and Ben, which has been great and I love it. But there's always been this connection with Peter that I've had through my agent, Mike Svenningson, and Peter, since they were best friends. Peter's always kind of had my back because I did go with Jersey. And so we've always just had this really good relationship. And so when Peter came to me and was like, dude, I want you to work with me, I was without a doubt 100% on board, ready to go. That was kind of just the start of it. And for some reason, I just feel so much confidence using Peter Olenick as a coach, just because he's a confident human being. And I know he'll tell me the right thing. If he's not confident with me landing a trick, he'll tell me straight up, dude, you don't got this. Do not do it. Having someone like that at this day and age, that's what I need. I need that mental stability more or less than an actual technical coach. And Peter is a great technical coach, but he's also there mentally. Like before a competition, he kind of looks at me and he's like, fuck yeah, you got this kind of thing. And so that's kind of the mentality that I really enjoy towards life. And so having Peter Olenick up top with me has just been a complete game changer in confidence lately. So that's pretty much been what's helping me out big time this year, is just having him behind my back at all times.
And when you start training with him, does he just make you do 200 whiskey flips before you can do anything else?
No, we were actually talking about that the other day. Actually, I was blaming Peter for ruining the sport the other day because he landed that whiskey flip. And I was working on some like doubles the other day on the airbag in Aspen. And I was like, dude, you know what? You suck, honestly, for making people start to do doubles. You're a G because you did it. But nowadays I've lost a lot of respect because you did that. And he always just laughs and thinks it's hilarious. Got to give coach some honors there.
Yep, he's definitely left his mark. And for you come from a small town that's known for great snow, gnarly skiing, a laid-back environment, free parking, and a whole lot of other things. And recently, Vail has come in, and a lot of people look at Vail as a bad guy. I don't share that sentiment. I lived there in the 90s, and it kind of shaped my life there. But back then, Vail Associates, as they were known, they seemed like they cared about skiing and business, and they weren't the best on the business side. And now it seems like the company's flip-flopped, with Vail Resorts killing it on the business end, but sometimes they're maybe not thinking about the local skier, although it seems like they are trying to listen. What are your thoughts on Vail coming to your hometown?
Yeah, honestly, there's been a lot of talk about this, and a lot of people in Crested Butte have asked me about it and been like, hey, I want to sit down with you and just hear your input on it. And I'll tell them honest, like, it's the greatest thing that happened to Crested Butte. Like, we needed changes. I loved the old owners. I was really close friends with their daughter and son, who ended up being, one was the vice president of Crested Butte, the other was the marketing director. And so I became really close with them, along with my parents. And so no hate towards them, but it got to the point where they needed to see some improvements and they were ready to sell. And so, Vail came in, and the whole issue with Park City, like trying to buy out the town and stuff, I think was a huge learning experience for them. And they've come into Crested Butte, and it's not like they're trying to buy the town. It's not like they're trying to, ruin the town. They're just coming in to own the ski resort. And so far, in my eyes, as a professional skier, you spend almost 90% of your days at Vail Resorts,
Yep.
Especially as a competitive one, like the other guys who are filming, they might never step foot on Vail Resorts. Totally fine. But us who are competing spend so much time on Vail Resorts, and I've seen things work. So I know that it's a good thing that they've kind of come in, because Crested Butte definitely needed an upgrade. Just with everyone, the housing market's going up, the amount of people that's coming into town or moving into town, it's going up like crazy, and we needed that because our skier days were so far below average for most seasons, the last few seasons. And so you could tell that it was needed to happen. And so since it's happened, I live right at the base area, right above the parking lot. And during the holiday season, every single day. Like, it always is crowded during holiday season, of course, but I was like, wow, it's crazy how many people have actually shown up here.
And your buddy who owned it and sold, did he make a fortune?
They made some pretty good money because they sold Okemo, Sunapee, and Mount Crested Butte. That's 3 mountains that they sold to Vail Resort, so they definitely got some money from it. But the cool part about it is that they kept the real estate of Crested Butte. So they're still the owners of all like the Crested Butte real estate. So the base area, most of the buildings, they still own that. So it's pretty cool actually that they got to still be a part of the mountain. It's not like they're just fully going off the deep end and being like, well, we sold and now what's next? Which is a good thing because I think with Vail owning the mountain, you'll see some changes there. You'll see more income coming in, which means that the Crested Butte real estate that they own is going to also make more money. There's going to be more people buying condos, there's going to be people coming in and getting food. And so hopefully with that deal, happening, we see more skier days, but then we also see some more visitor days of just people who want to see the town.
And then you probably started skiing as early as anyone on the podcast based on you having a big ski family, growing up in Crested Butte. How old were you when you first got on skis?
I started skiing when I was 18 months old. My brother and I were both spring babies. I was born in April. He was born in May. So when my brother got on snow, my parents couldn't believe how easy it was to teach him. It was just like ingrained in his blood. And then they got me on snow. They were like, you used to just cry and scream because you wanted to chase your brother down the hill, but he was a good skier and older than you, so he had a couple years on you. And I would be on the leash in front of my parents, and they'd be trying to hold me back, and I would just be yelling and screaming and telling them to let go. So finally, my dad was like, there's nothing we can do. Let's just let him go off the leash. And so when they did that, I didn't know how to stop yet, like nothing of that nature. Barely knew how to turn, and my dad just let me go off the strap, and I guess I started following my brother and pointed straight towards the trees, and my parents like totally freaked out, and then they watched me just bail right before the trees. And so they were like, well, I guess that's one way to teach him how to stop, he'll just bail. He'll see the worst possibility and he'll just bail from it. That's kind of how it all started. But also my grandpa started the ski school in Crested Butte. So there was definitely some history of skiers in my blood for sure. And my mom grew up skiing, her 2 brothers, and my dad moved out from Chicago after going to school in Wisconsin and got a job and just got hooked on the ski bum lifestyle and never left.
It seemed like your track was being pushed into contests, and I don't know if there's a push there, but it seems like you got into contests way earlier than most kids. Were you the youngest one in all the contests whenever you entered one?
Yeah, growing up, my brother and I are both very competitive people, and we get that from my dad's side of the family. I mean, my dad was a very competitive football player, baseball player, hockey player growing up. And
college player? Or?
He had the potential for sure, especially in football. And he kind of got driven away from that a little bit from a coach. But, like my dad started for New Trier in Illinois, which is one of the largest public high schools in the state of Illinois. And so my dad was, as a freshman, starting QB.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that just passed down to my brother and I. Like, we're both very competitive people. And so we kind of grew up just skiing, and all of a sudden there was like some local competitions that started popping up. And this guy who worked at a ski shop in Crested Butte, actually, you probably know him, Kevin Cruz.
Yeah, I know Kevin Cruz.
Yeah, so Kevin Cruz kind of came up to my dad and was like, there's this competition coming up and they've got age groups. You should sign the boys up. So my dad was like, yeah, okay, let's talk about this. And he's like, no, it's tomorrow. You should sign the boys up for it. So my dad just signed us up for this competition, and that was kind of it from there. X Games was going on, and I remember watching it on TV that night and then going and competing that next day. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I saw Peter Olenick and Simon Dumont, Tanner Hall, and Sammy Carlson. And I was like, this is what I want to do for sure. And so that was kind of just how it got engraved in me. It was just started competing at the age of 8.
Wow.
Yeah, I won my first competition, and from there I was like hooked on it. It motivated me so much. I just remember being like, this is what I want to do. I watched X Games that night, just being like, losing my mind. And I don't remember sleeping that night before the competition because I just remember being so excited. To me, I thought this was like the X Games for me because I'm watching it. It's X Games weekend. I'm going to go compete tomorrow. I was like, this is X Games. This for me, I'm only 8 years old, but that kind of just started. And then 2 years later, at the age of 10, my dad was like, dude, we got to sign you up for open class. You're crushing these kids in your age group. And so I was kind of nervous. I was like, no, like, Dad, like, I'm good, and I was a young kid winning the swag bags. Like, you like get new hats and some gloves and stickers, and I'd be all stoked up. And my dad was like, well, it's cash pay for open class. And to me, that meant nothing. I was a little kid. I was like, I don't need cash. I just want the backpacks and like all this sweet gear. And so my dad finally was like, no, we got to sign you up. So I was actually like, I'm not ready for open class. Maybe I can just sign up for 18 and over. And they pulled some strings and let me compete in 18 and over. And I won a rail jam. From there, my dad was like, all right, that's it. That was your last age group thing. You're going into open class. And I got all fussy with him. I was like, no way, dude, I'm not ready for that. And my dad's like, you just won 18 and over rail jam. You have to do open class. Like, all the judges are telling me that they need you to sign up for open class.
Wait, you're a 10-year-old?
Yeah, I was 10 years old at this point.
God, I would want to quit if I was anybody else in the contest.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of the guys that I looked up to in Crested Butte, when I ended up beating them later on that season, a lot of them did quit. And these are guys that I looked up to from such a young age, and they're like quitting and just starting to free ski. Being so young, I didn't understand what that meant. It's like, well, why would these guys quit? And my dad isn't going to break the news to me. Like, dude, it's because you're beating them, He was just like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just losing interest. And they might have other things going on. They're in college partying. And to me, I'm like, well, why would you do that when you could go ski every day?
Right.
All that I cared about was skiing every single day that I could.
And your dad, is he the Dragon?
Yeah. So my dad got the nickname of the Dragon. And from the first time we ever called him it just stuck. He's always just been known as the Dragon.
I hear he's kind of super supportive in like an old school way where he's not going to let you quit anything. He's going to be a hard ass to you, but you guys are like brothers at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my relationship with my dad is very special to me. I don't have a relationship with anyone in my life like my dad. He's the go-to guy. If I'm feeling low in confidence, I call him and he pulls up these sport quotes and just sends me links to them. He's like, listen to these. This will get you fired up. He's never been pushy about anything. He wanted my brother and I to play hockey, soccer, baseball. Like, he just wanted us to play sports. That was his thing. He's like, you guys are going to play sports. That's what I did. That's what you're going to do. So he was pushy maybe in that way, but he's never pushed me to be like, you need to do this or you need to do this trick to win. At the beginning of every single winter, still to this day, he asks me, do you still love it?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, which is really cool because when my brother and I were younger, if we ever said that we didn't love it, he would have pulled us from everything completely. He would have been like, no way, you're not skiing anymore then. I'm not going to pay for you guys to do something if you don't love it. He's always been like that since I could remember as a little kid. And he comes to every event possible. And to him, that's therapy. He works all week and getting to come to ski competitions. At this point, he's just become such good friends with all the other parents. That's like his people,
Yep.
So he gets to come to the competitions and my mom comes and they're just so supportive. And I honestly couldn't have done any of this without their support, and especially my dad's, who's always just pushed me to my max. Like, he's always like, if you're not feeling it, then don't do it. But if you're feeling it, let's do this thing. You got this kind of thing. So it's always been really nice having him behind my back and at every competition, because when I get down to the bottom, like just giving him a fist bump right when practice ends and then going back up for the first run, he's right there for a fist bump. And he's always like, you fucking got this. Like, this is all yours. So it always just gives you that super good confidence knowing that your dad's right there.
Well, I'm going to take a quick break and talk about my sponsors. And my first sponsor is Evo, and if you haven't been to one of their stores in Denver, Seattle, Portland, or Whistler, you are missing out on the best retail experience in snow. But don't worry, if you can't get to a store, you can find all the brands at the best prices over at evo.com. You'll also get a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders over $50, and a no-hassle return policy. Evo is different than your traditional retailers, and they're committed to creating a great experience for you, giving back to those who need it, and creating community. They make a difference in a space where most don't, and that's worth supporting. My next sponsor is Rescue Water, and if you're a listener of the show, you've heard me talk about how Rescue Water is proactive recovery. You've heard me tell you that there's nothing that will hydrate you better than a Rescue Water. But have you tried it? If you haven't, you're missing out on feeling better and more hydrated after a workout, a day on the hill, or doing whatever athletic endeavor you're into. And on the nightlife side, drink one Rescue Water before bed and you will feel 100% in the morning. Please do me and yourself a favor and pick up some Rescue Water next time you're at the store or on Amazon. If you head on over to rescuewater.com, you'll get 20% off a 12, 24, or 48 pack when you enter the code RESQUEWATERTPM, that's RESQ Water TPM, all one word at checkout. And those are my sponsors, so we'll get back into it. So being from Crested Butte, it's not really the mountain I expect a badass pipe skier to come from. You look at Crested Butte and it's big mountain contests I think about, and the extremes, and there's a ton of insane skiers on the mountain. And no offense, but I would think when you're younger, you probably have more fun in slopestyle just because of the variety of the course instead of just being in the U-ditch all day. And the risk in the U-ditch when you get super high out of it is a lot more than maybe some other places on the mountain. Where you're from is all about skiing powder and gnarly terrain. So how do you end up a pipe skier?
Yeah, honestly, Crested Butte's the reason that I love skiing. That mountain alone, I've had my best days of my life all in Crested Butte, without a doubt. I've had really fun days everywhere else in the world, but something about Crested Butte to me is so sick. And I've always just loved it there, and we did have a pipe when I was growing up. It wasn't anything perfect, but honestly, that's kind of what taught me to learn how to ski a half pipe. I didn't come from anything great, so I had to take advantage of what I could. And so growing up, I had coaches, most of them were big mountain coaches, honestly. And it was hard because I was always wanting to do park and pipe. And so they would always make me go to the big mountain for the first 4 or 5 runs of the day, which I didn't mind. I always loved it. My brother was more of a big mountain skier, so that meant I got to ski with him. So I would always just go ski like 5, 6 runs on the big mountain. And if it was good, we'd keep skiing. But if it wasn't, then my coaches would be like, okay, now I can take you to the park if you really want to. And so I skied big mountain. I skied slopestyle. I trained gates with the race program early season. And that was all just because our coaches were like, if you want to be a good skier, you got to train gates. You got to learn the technical side of skiing first. And so at the time I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Would always, this sucks. Like, it's cold. I don't want to be doing this. But now I look back at it and I'm like, every kid should go into the race program first.
The best skiers in the world have a race foundation that taught them how to ski.
Totally. And so that's something that nowadays I look at and I see all these skiers who haven't been in that program and I can see the difference. This person really knows how to bend a ski when they carve, and then this person, they drive so much with their shoulders that they're losing power, and so I see that kind of stuff and I pay close attention to it because that's stuff that I don't want to do. Skiing Crested Butte definitely taught me to be the skier that I am today, and the only reason that I keep skiing pipe is because of Crested Butte, because I can go home and not be near a pipe, not be near a park, and just go free ski. That's what I love to do. And when I do get into a half pipe, it's something that I don't do every day, so it's so fun to me. That's the only reason why I still ski pipe to this day.
Well, I would think there's money and success as well.
Totally, but that's never been the incentive to me.
The beauty of the money and the results is it lets you do everything else and ski all over the world. Yeah,
that part just makes me want to keep doing it because, there is paychecks, there is rewards for it. But that's just the bonus, like the joy that I get from learning a new trick is better than winning or contest in my eyes.
Well, at some point in your career, you're probably 13, 14, but it seems like Ski Club Vail is looking to upgrade their program and they want to get some serious talent in there. And I feel like that you and Alex Ferreira might have been recruited there.
Yeah, so Ilana Chase came from Aspen Ski Club, which is where she taught Torrin and Alex their whole life growing up. And so for Alex, it wasn't necessarily Vail recruiting him. It was more or less Ilana had moved to Vail, started the program up over there. So he went with her. So he was never really recruited. But at the time, one of my coaches who I had worked with for a few years at this point, Hans von Briesen, he was a huge inspiration to me. And like, honestly, he was an older brother to me. He just loved skiing. Obviously, he's older. He's got his group of friends that he could go out and drink beers and go party with, but he would come hang out with my brother and I and bounce on the trampoline. We'd like set up some lights and we'd bounce on the trampoline until 10, 11 o'clock at night when finally my parents would be like, all right, like guys, probably time to come in. And we'd be like, oh, what? 5 more minutes. And so at the time, he was my inspiration and he had blown his knee and I was going to nationals in Copper, USASA nationals. And I had him there. That was his first weekend back on skis, so he couldn't really do much. And so it was kind of hard for me. He couldn't be up at the top with me. He was at the bottom, and we didn't have radios or anything because the program at Crested Butte was so new. We didn't have any budget for that kind of stuff. I would talk to him at the bottom, but he couldn't see the first rail or the first jump. And so it was hard to have some coaching. And then Dave Zwig, who's over at Vail, was up at the top, and him and Ilana kind of looked at each other like, hey, we can help you out. And so they kind of started helping me out. And then later that night, my parents went up and we were staying in Frisco. And so they went back to Copper and did dinner with Ilana and kind of just talked about the program. And next thing you know, I'm a freshman in high school. And obviously, like, my friends meant the world to me at that age, just like any freshman in high school. And my parents came up to me and were like, hey, you have an opportunity to move to Vail and pursue this skiing. And for me, I wanted to pursue the skiing part, but I didn't want to leave Crested Butte. I didn't want to meet a whole new group of friends. And I had friends in Vail who skied, but I didn't know necessarily anyone else in Vail, like who went to the normal high school. And so I was really nervous and ended up going to Wendell's with Ilana that year to kind of test it out. And I remember calling my parents and being like, yeah, it's going great. I'm loving the program and everything. And it's working out good. I'm learning some stuff. And my dad was like, we're going to enroll you in the school. And I was kind of like, whoa, what? Like, I didn't agree to this yet. And he's like, this is the best thing for you, and we're going to do it. So it wasn't even really my decision. It was more or less just my dad was like, look, you have a talent. Let's capitalize on this. And so I'm thankful that he kind of stepped in and made the decision for me because I probably wouldn't have gone to Vail. So then I ended up going to Vail and everything just started clicking right off the bat.
What year is this around? Like 2011?
This was 2011, 2012 season was the year that I moved.
If that's the year that you move, you take bronze in the Youth Olympic Games at that point.
Exactly.
The biggest contest you've done up until that point. You're traveling all over the world for it.
Yeah.
That has to be game-changing, and you look back at your dad's decision, and you're like, hey, he wasn't an asshole. He was doing something right for me.
Totally. And that's something that I, as a young kid, I wasn't looking at. I was thinking of the fact that I was being brought to Vail without my parents. I was living with a host family over there, which was hard, you know. I was 15 years old and like not having like my real mom, my real dad there at the end of the day. All of a sudden I was just on my own.
Did you think they didn't love you?
I knew they loved me because I knew there was a reason why I was over in Vail. At the same time, I was like, this is really hard. You know, I have no parents over here. But then my mom started coming over a lot because she could tell that I missed home and I missed my parents.
Yep.
So then all of a sudden they were over there all the time. My mom was, at least. My dad would come over for like day trips just to ski and say hi and grab dinner quick. At the same time, I'm still doing USASA and Rev tours and stuff like that and getting Grand Prix spots. But the big event was Youth Olympics at that age. And so I ended up going there and getting bronze. But before that, I had such a freak out because I was in Steamboat trying to qualify for a junior national spot and I had fallen 2 runs in a row in the half pipe, and I was just livid. Like, I don't want to go to Austria. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I hate skiing now. And then I went to Austria and everything changed. And that was right when I kind of knew that this was a reality. Like, I could make this a reality and I could do this for a long time. I'm staying at the Youth Olympic Village, and I was like, this is so cool, like, this is what I want to do. And so all of a sudden my thought process on being in Vail completely changed, because I was like, my parents are letting me live alone in Vail with a family, obviously, but ultimately I was alone. And I was just getting to ski every day. And all of a sudden that was like the click. That was when I was like, this is for sure what I want to do the rest of my life.
Is that Olympic Games? Is that the first time you feel like you're a professional athlete?
Totally. But at the same time, I still didn't, because there was all this talk about Michaela Schifrin coming. And at the time, Michaela was on her first year of World Cups, winning World Cups.
Yeah, but she can't even drop in the half pipe.
No, not at all. But they didn't let her come to Youth Olympics because of the fact that it would be unfair. So meanwhile, I'm sitting here, thinking like, like me and Ben Ferguson, we roomed together there. We're sitting there thinking like we're like big dogs at this point because we're at the Youth Olympics. But then at the same time, we're like, keep hearing everyone talk about Michaela Schifrin and this other hockey player who was supposed to be there. And they aren't letting them be there because they would have just totally smoked everyone in the competition. They didn't want it to ruin competing for a lot of these other countries.
And she is on a tear right now, too. I think she's won like 7 races in a row or something like that.
Yeah, straight up. She is crushing it.
So at this point, I would think people start taking notice of you. When does sponsorship and people start giving you skis happen? Because when you do that at the Youth Olympic Games and everybody's seen this little kid who's not that little, but he's younger than everybody else and he's beating a lot of people. I mean, when do brands reach out to you and say they want you on their product?
I was on Armada skis at the time. So I was getting 2 jackets, 2 pants, and 2 pairs of skis a season. And that was kind of the start of it. And then all of a sudden, I was going to Youth Olympics, so I was like, I might need 1 more pair of pipe skis. So I asked them. They were like, yeah, no problem, but they're going to be last year's graphic. And I was like, I don't care. I just need backups just in case. So they sent me a pair like the years before skis. And for me, like just getting free skis was so cool. And that year was the first year I was on Armada. I was obsessed with Armada. Like I was so obsessed with the Tanner Halls and just the whole team. Mike Hornbeck was on them and Phil Caspon and Jakob. I was just obsessed with that team. And so getting free skis from them was like, oh my God, this is such a dream. They were kind of taking notice. And then all of a sudden, the next year, I was having issues getting skis. And then all of a sudden I go to the Grand Prix and I get a podium and Head comes knocking at the door. And at this time, Torn was already pro and we're right around the same age. Torn was getting next year's skis and next year's outerwear before I had even gotten like this year's stuff. So I'm sitting there like, oh man, like we're going into the Grand Prix. I have nothing. So I ended up wearing a North Face jacket because I had to, because I was on the US rookie team, and North Face pants, and then was on Armada skis. And Head came to me the next day after I had gotten my podium. The team manager at the time, Tyson Bolduc, was like, hey, I'm in Vail. I want to go skiing with you. So we met up. We went skiing that day. And then a week later, I had gotten my X Games invite. And he's sending over a contract. And I was like, oh my God, this is happening all so quick, And so then I was in an argument between Armada, which at the time I thought Armada had a doper team. But at the same time, I had talked with some people and they were just like, we think that Head's a better deal for you, and you could eventually maybe become a face at Head where you're going to the factory, you're getting boots made for you and everything like that. And so I was like, screw it, let's do a Head then. Let's make this happen. And then North Face came up to me the next week as well. And they were like, hey, we're thinking about assigning you to the team. We want like another young kid. So all of a sudden, like I went from getting no gear from Armada to all of a sudden had 6 pairs of skis at X Games from Head, got a shopping spree to go shopping in Vail right before X Games with North Face. All of a sudden I have all this gear, all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. It's all coming up so quick. And kind of the confidence came to me after Youth Olympics.
Picking head is an interesting one because the legends that are on Armada skis, I mean, I look at Armada, they were what K2 was in 99. They're the cool cutting edge brand that has all the fucking badass riders that every kid who looks up to a skier, they look up to people on Armada. And for you, that image has to feel awesome, like I'm part of this. And then when you go to head, I can't say they have the same image as Armada, but they have a lot in the tank to make your career go. So it's like you're trading off image for inventory.
Totally. And growing up, I've never really been heavy and big, but I've always been pretty muscular. I mean, when I was a kid, I was snapping through skis so much. And then I'd have to take a full week, 2 weeks off to wait for warranty on my skis. I was trying Solomons. I was trying Armadas, K2, Rosignol, like all the junior skis at the time, just breaking everything. And so once head came to the table, they were like, yeah, we're going to put you on contract and basically just hit us up. We can get you skis as much as you want. At the time, I was like, that's what I need. That's what I'm interested in. And so that was the deal breaker, was like knowing that I was going to get skis for 2 years straight on contract. Like I wasn't even looking at the money. I was looking at just being able to get product all the time. And so, like you said, it was kind of just trading for inventory. And at the time, Simon had just made the switch. So I was like, if Simon trusts this ski, it can't be a bad ski because Simon is, at the time, he was the best in the industry. And so I was like, Torrens on Armada, I could be head. We're the same age. I'll never make what Torrens making from Armada. And I knew that. So I was like, this is what I need to do for myself.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the decision back then today, if you were still on Armada, you and Torren would still be on Armada. He would have seniority over you based on them supporting him before you. And you just might be another name or another face with the Armada brand, where with head, you're what they've got.
Totally. And that was the whole thing, was like they had the Tanner Torren situation. And I was like, you know what? I could make this Simon Aaron situation with head. Simon's probably got 2-3 more years under him, which was completely correct. I guessed it. And so I took the risk and, I've never looked back. And since I joined head at a young age, they've been nothing but supportive, and they've gotten to the point where it's family. So many of those guys are just family to me.
Well, that's great. Who else pays you?
Rockstar Energy. We just discontinued with the North Face. So it's Rockstar Energy, POC for goggles, helmets, and protection, and then head skis, Tyrolia bindings, head boots, Crested Butte, Paul Mitchell, and then this company 11 Experience, which is a really cool company based out of Crested Butte. They're a resort destination company, so they own a heli ski operation in Iceland. They own a cat skiing operation in Crested Butte, and then France, they own a chalet that's ski in, ski out of Saint Foy. They're building all sorts of different resorts for fly fishing and mountain biking here in the next couple of years. But it's been a great time being with them, and I get a lot of opportunities to go ski some unreal mountains. And it seems that every time that they call me, it's just nuking snow. So I'm always like, yes, I'll be there in a heartbeat. Don't you guys worry. And they're like, perfect. Sounds great. We just need to shoot a few images. And I'm like, well, if we're just going to shoot a few images, we may as well just shoot everything, because I'm trying to take as many laps as possible.
Your hair must be really important to you. Did you seek out Paul Mitchell? You're like, I need some of their new pomade. I might as well sign a contract with them and I can have perfect hair for life.
Actually, my agent, Jersey Mike, he had a great connection through Jen Hudak and Alex Schlopey. And so when I got on board, he kind of reached out to them because I was young. And to me, like $1,000 at the time was huge. So he got a really low end deal right off the bat. Was like, hey, I got this new kid. Why don't you just throw him maybe a couple grand? He'll be stoked and he'll rock all your gear. I would have never thought about Paul Mitchell as a sponsor. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, my agent's calling me Jersey and he's like, dude, I got you on Paul Mitchell. And I was like, well, that's cool. I don't really wash my hair that much, bro. And he goes, dude, it's all good. They're going to send you a bunch of stuff. And so once they started sending me stuff, I was like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll start washing my hair more.
And I will say, to their credit, they have stuck by action sports for over 20 years. From skate to snow, they've always been there.
Oh, absolutely. They're one of the most supportive sport companies in the industry, honestly. No one would ever expect it, but I've met John Paul before, and he told me personally, he's like, I just love sports. I'm a very active person. I love sports. So when he had his company blowing up, he was basically like, I just want to support athletes and a healthy lifestyle, because that's what he's all about, is like a healthy lifestyle and being active. And so he was like, we're going to support every sport that we can. And so the concept behind that to me is so fucking cool. Not many companies are like, we just love sports and outdoor activity. We're just going to put a ton of money into this, and we don't care what you guys do. We just like you guys as people and supporting being an active lifestyle person.
And in 2013, you're 16, and you said you got your invite to the X Games. Do you have to straight up qualify, or do you get an invite?
I actually got an invite from getting a podium at the Grand Prix. And so I had just podiumed Grand Prix. I got second right behind Mike Riddle, in between David Wise and Mike Riddle. And like at the time, David was still pretty new to the scene, not crazy new. Like he had an X Games gold at that point, but he was still pretty new to the whole scenario. He had just started making finals maybe like 4 years before that. But I'd looked up to Mike Riddle since I was a little kid. And so standing next to him, I was freaking out. And it was dumping snow there. And so I still had some tricks that I wanted to throw, but I couldn't because I wasn't big enough to get speed. So to get second there, I was like freaking out and so stoked. And then I went up to Whistler for the North Face Park and Pipe Open Series, and that was the qualifier. So at the time, it was me and Alex and a couple other kids from Vail who had gone up there, and Ilana's kind of like, man, this is going to be hard because this is going to be a battle between Aaron and Alex, and whichever one wins, which both of us could have won, was like going to get the spot. And then slopestyle was the first day, and then halfpipe was the next day, and I was doing both. And Alex was just there doing pipe. And the night before slopestyle, I just remember pulling out my computer to do some homework, looking at my email really quick, seeing this random email from X Games saying, congratulations. And I was like, what? Losing my mind. And I just immediately called my dad. His first question was like, oh my God, he's in Whistler. Why is he calling me? You know, like, is everything okay? And I was like, dude, everything is more than okay. I just got an X Games invite. And he just loses it. So stoked. Starts yelling at my mom, like, Aaron got his X Games invite. Oh my God, we're going to Aspen. Like, dream come true for the kid. And I'm just freaking out, like, so stoked. And I run downstairs. I get Ilana, and I tell her that I got an X Games invite. And she just immediately calls the North Face Park and Pipe people and is like, oh my God, this could not be happening any better because Aaron and Alex are both trying to get this X Games invite. Aaron got his. That means he can pull out of halfpipe. So she pulled me out of halfpipe. Was just like, I'm not letting you compete at halfpipe here. I was like, that is fine. So Alex ended up winning the event. He got his spot through that. And it was like perfect because at the time we were best friends and we were both just so stoked. Like we had made it finally. But then slopestyle the next day, we do qualifiers. I qualified like 6th or something like that. And then all of a sudden we're going into finals and I kept having problems with this rail. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to hit the other rail, even though it's way gnarlier. And then I end up like dropping in and I held first for like the first run, the full first run. I was like, whoa, thinking like my first ever X Games, I might get a spot for both pipe and slope. No way. And I'm freaking out like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden I fall my second run and then Willie Bourne goes and beats me. And then Noah Wallace goes, beats me. And then Noah Morrison goes and beats me. And I ended up 4th in slope, but I was on the cusp there for a second of like making both slope and pipe. And I was like, no way. Cause at the time I could ski pipe, but like at that time, left doubles were starting to be thrown in slope, or left and right doubles. I'm a right spinner, so I was like, I don't have a left doubles. Honestly, thank God I didn't get a slope spot because I would have just made a complete clown out of myself out there.
I heard you mention the name Willie Bourne, and at one point I thought he was next. I thought we were going to hear about his name every day, and he was going to be just a huge person on the ski scene. And I don't know what happened to him. Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still around. Honestly, like, it's kind of crazy to think about, but when I first made the U.S. rookie team, it was like me, Andy Partridge, Alex Ferreira, Lyman Currier, and Willie Bourne. And at the time, Willie was the only one with a real name. He had Rockstar already, sponsored by Oakley, Solomon, making the switch to Apo. And we're all like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy, you know? Willie Bourne's like for sure going to be the next one up. And then all of a sudden, all of us make the pro team and Willie's still on the rookie team. And he's still around, but he's battled some injuries the last 2 years, unfortunately.
And then with you, you don't really seem to be a contest robot guy. You like to ski POW and maybe get in a pipe a week before the contest and dial in your run is what I hear. But there are some full-on athletes out there that treat their bodies like a temple. And how about training for you? What do you do to get in shape for skiing?
For a long time, I was super anti the gym, anti like stretching, all that stuff. And I started battling injury after injury. I had hurt my back the year after Sochi Olympics. And dude, I could barely ski. Like, I'd ski for maybe 2 weeks at a time, and then I'd have to take like a month off. And so it was killing me. And so all of a sudden, this trainer in Crested Butte who I had worked with when I was younger as a ski coach, who's now a trainer, she was good friends with my parents, and she talked to my mom, was like, what's going on, you know, everything like that. And my mom told her, and then all of a sudden was like, yeah, he's got all these issues with his back and all this stuff, and he's just not doing well mentally. So all of a sudden I started working out with her, and I don't ever regret it. Like, it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. She taught me, you know, to have a work ethic on and off the hill. And without her, I was kind of starting to become not unthankful about skiing, because I was always so thankful and loved skiing. But like, in my head, I started being like, oh, I've made it. You know, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. But then all of a sudden she kind of taught me like, this isn't going to last forever. So you got to make it last for as long as you can. So ever since then, I started training 5 days a week in the gym, going on bike rides every day or skateboarding before or after the gym. And ever since then, I've noticed such a difference. I feel so strong. I feel confident. I feel just ready to ski.
The bad year for you, I think, was 2015.
Yeah.
And that's really only, 3.5 years ago. You've only been working out and getting yourself ready to really ski for 3.5 years. So the future should be strong for you as well. But getting onto the U.S. team, everyone in the world thinks that when you make the U.S. ski team, you're traveling all over the world on the ski team dime. But I don't think that's really how it is.
No, not at all.
What is the U.S. ski team? You're a two-time Olympian. And what do they take care of for you?
Honestly, the U.S. ski team, I don't mean to rag on them, but at the same time, you're throwing so much money at the racers. It's just not really fair to us freestylers who are getting more podiums, more publicity than they are. And they're just getting everything paid for, you know, like on the A and B team, they pay for maybe 2 or 3 trips a year. Whereas for us, all of that is out of our own pocket. Like, the U.S. team pays for lodging, which is really nice. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the lodging, it helps big time. But at the end of the day, that's really the only thing that they're helping out with. Like, we pay for our own food. We pay for our airfare or our driving or whatever, you know?
It's kind of like if you were a football player on the Broncos and you said the Broncos only paid for your hotel. That's kind of what you're getting from the U.S. team.
Exactly. I mean, like, the insurance with the team is great. I can't deny that. They have some of the best insurance. The whole reason, honestly, that's like kept me going on the U.S. team is the insurance and the physical therapy. You can't really beat it. They pick some of the best physical therapists in the world. So for me, like, that's super important because it's always helped me. So that's kind of what it is.
And what are the negatives? Do they drug test you a lot?
The U.S. team doesn't necessarily drug test us. That's through USADA, which is through the USOC. So the U.S. team is not really anything like that.
Okay.
But I would say the negatives about it are really just how race-oriented they are. And I get it. They started because of racing. And so I totally understand it. But times have changed, you know? Like, you're starting to see way more people doing park and pipe. than racing. And so that's the biggest negative to me, is how much they support racers. And then they kind of just look at us like, oh, those guys, they go out after competitions and they do this and they do that. And you're like, that's not us. That may have been us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but that's not us today. Like, we're legit hardworking athletes who are giving it our all. And it just kind of goes unseen a little bit at the U.S. team. I'd say that's kind of the negative, is just how underrated the U.S. free skiing team is, even though out of snowboarding, border cross, GS, downhill, super G, slalom, all of that, slopestyle and halfpipe and free skiing get more podiums than anyone else there. So it's kind of crazy to me.
You can look at it from the sponsorship side, even with your head brand, where a racer is going to make a lot more than a halfpipe skier at all times. And with any of these U.S. programs or even any other country, the race teams are always taken care of more so. And globally, racing is huge. But in the U.S., no one cares about it really, except for the people that are doing it. And those people that are doing it are the people that you see in speed suits at the ski hill on the weekend. But I don't think anybody else really watches ski racing that much, but they would like to watch halfpipe, and that's in the U.S.
Totally. And nowadays, you go to Europe, and some of the most insane slopestyle courses are built in Europe. And it's starting to become a very big thing over there. So that's what's hard, is nowadays, like, yeah, okay, in Europe, racing is still huge. But at the same time, free skiing is starting to get really big over there as well. And so it's hard in the U.S., like, everyone would rather watch slopestyle and halfpipe, but in Europe, they're still so about racing. And so for us, we just kind of get like hosed a little bit, because the race team, like, they advertise for the Beaver Creek downhill and the Killington GS for like weeks. And then with us, it's like Copper Grand Prix comes around, and like that week they might do a little bit of advertising, but that's it. And so you're just kind of like, you guys could help us out here, but you won't.
Yeah, and it's funny because the perspective that you get from watching, not on slopestyle, but for halfpipe, it's the one medium in skiing that's built for people to watch.
Exactly.
I'm going to take one more sponsor break, and I'm going to start with Spy Optic. Spy has been around since 1994, so they have a long history supporting snow sports. And this year, they've produced the best goggle ever made, the Ace EC. That's a bold statement, but it's 3 lenses at the push of a button. I asked pro podcaster Mike Powell if he had a chance to try the Ace EC.
Dude, I have. It's crazy.
I used it this weekend on a day where we had sun, we had snow, we had clouds, and 3 lens options meant I never had to think about changing my lenses while my friends were pretty much screwed. The Ace EC is a game changer, and you're going to have to pay full price for the best goggle in the world. But to save 20% on everything else Spy, head on over to spyoptic.com, place your order, then use the code capital TPM, the number 20. That's all one word, and you will get that 20% when you check out. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They make beer and like to drink it outside, and the beer they make is awesome. And when they're not making or drinking their awesome beer outside, they're supporting some of the coolest projects and events in snow. There's the Pray for Snow movie, a film that 10 Barrel produced with writers Eric Jackson, Ben Ferguson, Lucas Walks, and more. And in March, they're going to be hosting 3 different Hella Big Air events. And currently, they're working with Mike Bassich to create a Snowcat mini pub, and they help make this podcast happen. And that's just the beginning. Next time you're out buying beer, support the brand that supports you, the 10 Barrel Brewery. You can find out more about the events, their pubs, and the beer over at 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's get back into the podcast. I would say 2013, 2014 is a huge year for you. You're gunning for the Olympics and you get a spot on the Olympic team. How old are you? Like 17, 18 years old?
I was 17 years old when I made the Olympic team. And honestly, that whole season was a dream to me. I was going into it, I was like, I'm at this level, but there's still the Simon Dumonts, the David Wise, the Gus Kenworthys, the Torrens, who are all better than us. And all of a sudden, go to the first Dew Tour of the season, first contest, and Lyman and I end up second and third behind David Wise. And we're kind of like, dude, we're the first 2 on the podium. Like, this is crazy, And Lyman and I are young kids, not ever expecting to make that 2014 Olympic Games. Like, we were gunning for maybe 2018.
Right.
But next thing you know, that happens. And then the next week I go to Copper and I end up winning Copper. And then all of a sudden, like, I was rooming with Simon at the time, and I walk into the house and Simon goes, "You're a dick." And I go, "For what?" He goes, "Just kidding. I love you. I'm really proud of you. You just got your Olympic spot, but you are a dick." He's like, "That was supposed to be my spot." And I'm just sitting there like, like my idol is calling me out, and I'm like sitting there freaking out that I just won this. So Simon's just making fun of me that whole night. The whole next morning, he's like making fun of me. And then we go to Breckenridge, and I ended up separating my shoulder in Breckenridge. And I'm like, right then and there, I'm thinking, I just blew it. Like, I didn't necessarily need to do this contest, and I just separated my shoulder. And then all of a sudden, so many things changed because of that podium, because Dave got a podium and he got his spot. Dave, I think, was the only guy to get on the podium there. But then all of a sudden, Gus has one podium. I have 2 podiums. Simon has none. But Simon's like, looking at Park City, like, I've been skiing here the last little bit, was here over New Year's shredding, and he's loving the pipe. And so at the time, I was like floating in a dream the whole time. I couldn't believe it. And all of a sudden, Simon blows his knee the first night, and that was really hard to watch. And Gus gets on the podium, and then Lyman got another podium. So we're sitting there, and it's like, all of a sudden now 3 of the scores are tied. So me, Lyman, and Gus are all tied on scores. And Alex Ferreira had just got on the podium too. So then all of a sudden, what went from a pretty much guaranteed spot for me ended up being, you have to hit a podium at this last event. I was just like, well, screw it. This season has already been such a success for me. If I don't make it, I don't care. That's what I'm thinking about. And so going into the last night, all of a sudden, Gus puts down a hammer run and knocks Alex off the podium, which guaranteed my spot. Then it comes down to basically me, Lyman, and Gus, and Torin for a coach's discretion. And so Gus is on the podium, but I'm so zoned in, like ready to go. And I ended up landing that run and getting second behind Lyman. So all of a sudden, me and Lyman had qualified our spots, and then the spots between Gus and Torin. So it was like a whole crazy thing, because Lyman and I were not expecting to make that at all. Like, we had no expectations to make the team in 2014, and next thing you know, we're both on the team.
Well, I can tell you, as Lyman's sponsor at that time, we had no expectations for Lyman making the Olympics either.
Exactly. And I don't think any of my sponsors did either. Like, they were all like, whoa, like, you're not one of the kids that we didn't expect, but you kind of were one of the kids we didn't expect.
You get to go to Sochi, and everything's new to you there, and I'm sure you're super nervous. But the things that I hear that might stand out for you, where you said earlier that you guys weren't the ones partying, you're the one who's sneaking Jaeger onto the gondola in the Olympic Village and pounding the whole thing. Would that be correct?
Well, it wasn't just me who did that. We had been there for 2 weeks already. We're all such active kids, and at the age of 17, 18 years old, Lyman, Torin, and I were just ADD out the roof. Like, dude, we can't do this. What are you talking about? Like, we can't just be stuck for a week. And so for the first week, we didn't get to ski at all. And we went to so many hockey games that we got to the point where we were just like, dude, all we've done is watch hockey. We can't wait to go ski. And then we get up to the village, and the mountain village had just been getting hammered on with snow. Of course, the day that we move up there, then it gets to be like 50 degrees.
Right.
So the snow just wasn't that good, but we were still skiing every day, at least going and taking a few laps. And it was so fun. That mountain was so cool, and the terrain was honestly some of the most gnarly terrain I've ever skied in my life.
I heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So Lyman, Torin, and I did sneak some Jaeger on to the gondola, and we chugged it. And then we all just got up to the village and realized, what are we doing? We're like at the Olympics. We should be taking this somewhat serious, but at the same time, we were also young. We didn't really know any better, And so that was kind of really the only night that anything ever happened, that we did anything like that.
Well, I heard you were discriminated against too there because you were Americans and you couldn't eat pizza at the pizza joint because they didn't like Americans.
Yeah, that was the craziest thing. We went into a pizza joint that night, and we had called in for a reservation like 4 hours in advance. And they were like, yeah, totally. We got you guys, table 4. We show up and they ask us immediately where we're from. And we say, America. And next thing you know, the manager comes down. He's like, oh yeah, we don't have any tables for you guys. And we're like, what? We called for a reservation. There's open tables. What are you talking about, And so all of a sudden they ask us to leave and we're like, what? Mind blown. And then Davey Schmidt from GoPro comes out and he's like, whoa, boys, like, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys are allowed to leave the mountain village? And we're like, dude, the food is so bad. We have to come down here to get food. Like, it's honestly at that point, McDonald's was gourmet. That's how bad the food was. And so we're like, we just need food. And all of a sudden they're like kicking us out. And thank God for Davey, because Davey was like, we're doing a GoPro dinner. We got a bunch of empty pizzas that aren't going to be eaten. And so you guys can just grub down. So thank God for Davey that night, because we were able to eat, because without it, we probably weren't going to be eating that night. We were just so sick of the mountain village food and everything was undercooked and it was just awful. So thank God for that.
And then your Olympic experience, or the contest, you end up with 7th place. And I would think, being that it's your first Olympics and everything's so new to you, that you might not be super bummed. You might just be happy to be there and make the final. But that's my assumption. And how was it for you?
Yeah, I was super stoked just to have made the final. But at the same time, landing my first run in finals was at the time the best run I've ever landed. And then I go second run and land an even better run. So my score came in, and like the whole time, even in qualies, I barely made qualies. Like, I was the first competitor to drop. First run, I land my run. Second run, I land my run. And I get like a 69 on both runs. I was just like kind of sitting there like, are you kidding me? I wasn't even doing this run. I was qualifying in the high 80s at all the other qualifiers. So I'm kind of sitting there like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden I made finals in 12th place, like last spot. And I was just freaking out. I was like, oh my God, like, this is so crazy that I've like made finals, And so I'm thinking, this is my time to shine. And all of a sudden I land my run, everything goes great. And then I get my score in again. And I'm like, I have been being underscored all night. Meanwhile, I'm getting text messages from Simon Dumont, like, bro, I don't know what's happening. Your scores are just getting so screwed. Like, I don't know what's happening, dude. And hearing that from Simon Dumont, who I'd looked up to my whole life, was crazy. I'm just sitting there like, and all of a sudden the score comes in, and I'm not saying that I should have won, but I'm also not saying I shouldn't have been 7th. I would have been more happier with 4th. And it was so hard for me to be happy, because at the same time, like, I'm at the Olympics and I'm only 17 years old. I should be so stoked. But at the same time, I was kind of like, what do I need to do better, And then I talked to the judges and they were like, oh, we saw that you missed a grab on these 2 tricks. And then I rewatched a video of it and I was like, those were the 2 tricks that I grabbed the best. Did they miss something?
That's got to be frustrating, man.
Yeah, so it was frustrating for a few hours. But then all of a sudden, I got over it and I was like, whatever, things happen. So yeah, I was stoked after a few hours had gone by.
The next season, 2015, that's where you have your injuries. 2016, you're healthy and skiing well. 2017, though, is your year. I mean, that's the biggest year you've ever had in your life, I feel like.
Yeah.
I think you've been to the X Games like 6 times at this point, and I don't know if you've never made the finals, but you've never done well.
I had only made it once, one final up till that season.
2017, you go in and you win it. Then you also get a gold at the World Championships in Spain, and it's another Olympic qualifying process that you're going to, and I think you punch your ticket pretty easily for this one.
Yeah, going into 2017, I had just been so sick of the way that I had looked at competitions and looked at things in my life, just almost acting spoiled in a way, which was bad. But I went into 2017 season with basically this attitude of like, I don't care what happens to me. I'm going to go try and just win everything that I can. And so I went into that season not caring about a single thing except for just skiing as hard as I possibly can. I just all of a sudden got this motivation to just be the complete sick savage. And next thing you know, I'm just having the season of my life skiing powder. And then everything started falling into place, and it was all because of how much powder I was skiing that year. Crested Butte just had the storm of a century. Like, we just got hammered on so many days in a row. And it was like 10 days with 2 feet of snow every single day. And it was so crazy. And I was just skiing so much POW. I go to a training camp. I'm still skiing POW. And then all of a sudden I go to X Games and I win. And I couldn't believe it, And then we go to Mammoth and I get 4th in Mammoth. And then I'm just on the season of my life. I'm just skiing, not even worrying about anything anymore. Monster had dropped me. So I kind of had this anger in the back of my head that was just win everything and slap Monster in the face for dropping me, And so Rockstar came to me early that season, and I just knew it was going to be a good season because I was I have some support again. I have this new group of family almost that's just right there for you whenever you need it. And so I just had this motivation and everything linked. And then the end of the year, I met my now girlfriend, and it was legit the best year of my life, both skiing and outside of skiing.
And I think the X Games leading up to the Olympics, maybe your second run where you just absolutely blew up. And looking at you and looking at Torin, there's something very similar to both of you guys, that you guys can both take a beating and get back up. Given Torin's beatings, like the one he has right now with 2 broken heels, usually puts him laid up for a long time and then he comes back just as strong. But you're one of those dudes that when you beat it in, you go to the bottom of the pipe, you see your dad's rub some snow on it and get back out there, and then you do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I grew up watching the movie Miracle, and that's about the 1984 U.S. hockey team when they win against Soviet Union. There's this one quote in there where the coach goes, "A bruise on the knee is a hell of a far ways away from the heart." And so all last year through the Olympic process, I had bruised both my heels in snow mass. So I was dealing with bruised heels, which just suck. Anyone who's ever had them can agree with them. They just suck. They hurt. There's nothing you can really do to heal them. And so I'm just dealing with that. And then I go to Mammoth and I separate my AC joint. So I'm going into X Games. I'm just so bruised, so battered. We're leaving for Korea in 2 weeks. I have my spot. I'm oh my God. I'm just going to keep it pretty mellow at X Games. And all of a sudden I go to X Games and I just destroy myself, tear my oblique, hands down the worst pain I've ever been in. I was at a 9 out of 10. I can always handle pain pretty well. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always just kind of had this high pain tolerance. And so I'm about to land the best run I've ever landed. And then I just go over the bars at X Games, over rotate. My hips go to the left. My upper body goes to the right. Just tear my oblique off of my hip bone. And it was so bad. At first, all the adrenaline was still pumping. I go back. The medics check me. My agent Jersey's in there. My girlfriend's in there. My dad's in there. And my dad just kind of looks at my girlfriend and goes, "You got to talk to him." Every time I talk to him, he just tells me the bruise is a hell of a far ways away from the heart. But something is wrong here. And I kept just telling him, I was "No, I'm good." And I started jumping up and down and moving my hips. I was "No, I'm good. I think I just rolled over my ski and bruised myself a little bit, but I'm good." I get up to the top. I get off the snowmobile, and I couldn't get off the snowmobile. I was stuck.
Oh, man.
I couldn't lift my leg up. I was "Oh, my God." So I just rolled off the snowmobile, immediately started screaming. Our physio is right there on the U.S. team, Kara Baxter, and she looks at me and she just goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "Fuck no, I'm not okay. Something's wrong." And she's like, "Well, we just got word that you were fine." And I was like, "Oh my God, the adrenaline's gone." I just started freaking out. And Torin was up there too, and we're sitting in the athlete tent. Torin has seen me in pain too many times. I feel like I'm always in pain to the point that I don't even notice it most times.
Okay.
But Torin's looking at me like, "Oh my God, this is bad. Aaron doesn't scream like this. Aaron doesn't complain like this. Something is wrong." So he looked at me and he even told me, he's like, "Dude, do you think it's worth it to do your next run?" And I just looked over and I was like, "Pull me. I'm done. I can't drop back in." And that was the first time in my entire life that I've ever pulled out from a run or an event of any sort. For me, that was a big thing. And I was actually really proud of myself. because I've always put in the back of my head and just be like, you're always injured. What's one more, you know?
Yeah.
But this was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I might have some internal bleeding and I might die. And that's what's going through my head is I might die. And so our physio's like, whoa, okay, well, Dave is about to drop. I got to go back up there. And I just go, I got to go to the hospital. And she's like, well, wait, really? And I was like, I got to go. So the ski patrollers that were up in the athlete tent end up calling a sled for me, get a sled up there. I can't even get on the sled. So I'm just laying on the sled backwards, looking like a total idiot. I get off, and my girlfriend's right there. And she just takes one look at me and is like, you're not okay. And I was like, we're going to the hospital, babe. Let's go. And so we go down, ambulance comes, picks me up, go to the hospital, go get a CT scan. They're like, you got a torn oblique. And I'm just like, great. What's the recovery time on this? And they're like, it's a muscle, so it's hard to tell. It could be 6 weeks, could be 3 months. And I was like, I got 2 weeks till I'm in Korea. And they were like, yeah, we don't know about that. And I was like, I'm going to Korea. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. I will jam my feet into those ski boots and go ski if I have to. So they're just sitting there like, do whatever you got to do, I guess. And at the meantime, I'm also asking for painkillers. And I do not like painkillers. I've only had them once before that, and I'm not down with them. But I was in so much pain. I was like, I need something because this is so bad. And they wouldn't give me painkillers because of the fact that I was going to the Olympics. And I was like, no, it's fine. You guys can just sign a TUE. I know you have them here because Torin has come in here and he's gotten a TUE through you guys. They didn't give me a TUE. They gave me some extra strength Tylenol, and that was that.
Great.
I was so messed up, and I was like, I need more than this. They didn't have anything else. So that night just went by, no sleep at all. My girlfriend stayed up with me all night while I just sat there crying, which I normally don't cry because of pain, but this pain was so bad I couldn't stop crying. The doctor told me, he's like, this is what it feels like to get shot. And it's funny because I was always like, I wonder what it feels like to get shot by a bullet. Now I know. Tearing your obliques is very close to it.
And you have 2 weeks to get yourself together to get to the Olympics. I'm guessing, just based on this story, that you're going into the Olympics at about 70%.
Yeah, I mean, not even, honestly. Like, between my bruised heels, my separated AC joint, now a torn oblique, I was probably going into the Olympics 50% healthy. My left side of my body was good for the most part, other than my AC joint, but my right side of my body was so beat up and so battered. In between X Games in Korea, I had a week back home, and I spent that entire week going to 2 sessions of PT a day, going and seeing my strength coach at the gym, and she was helping me out doing some things. I spent the entire week just taking muscle relaxers, trying to get myself somewhat healed. And it was stressful, dude. Everything's going through your mind, personal life things and ski life things, and you're just sitting there like, I'm going to Korea in less than a week right now, and I'm so bruised and battered. If it were this season, you know, I would have taken it off. I would have been like, all right, I'll come back in the spring, healthy, ready to go. But I got to take a break, but I couldn't. I was going to the Olympics, and I was going to try and get a medal there. So I go to the Olympics, and I'm just like, thank God we had that week of skiing POW in Japan, because I was not ready to be back in the halfpipe. I was so beat up and just so bruised and battered and worn out that Japan was honestly just like a therapeutic use for me. Skiing POW, not having to overexert my body in any weird ways or twisting and things like that.
And you did this a week before the Olympics with the team?
Yeah, and the team paid for us to go. Mentally and physically, I was able to just go relax and just ski powder, which is what I love to do. So without that, honestly, the Olympics would have been so bad for me.
When you go to this Olympics, I guess it's good that you've been there before. You know what to expect from the Olympics, going to a foreign country, and there's a big language barrier. You understand all of that, but the result is the same at this Olympics. You're in 7th place again. And this year, did you earn 7th place?
I think so. I mean, I definitely think I could have scored a little bit higher, but I don't think I should have been on the podium. It was almost even more of a success because I overcame so much that it proved my like mental strength to myself. And so I was like, you know, if anything, this Olympics, I learned so much. I learned what I loved about skiing and what I don't. You know, that 7th place result, at the time I was very upset about it. But now that it's happened, I couldn't be more grateful for what happened.
Yeah, if you go into a contest at 50% and your whole ski crew is there pretty much, and they're 100% or they're a higher percentage than you, then yeah, you should be stoked with 7th. And speaking of David Wise, do you have all 4 doubles now?
Yes, I do. Actually, David likes to say that he did all 4 doubles first, but he didn't. I did it. I did it 3 years ago on the pipe in Mammoth. I did all 4 doubles. Not in competition. Dave can fully take pride that he did all 4 doubles in competition first, but I did have him first.
Knowing that, and knowing that now you probably are confident and comfortable throwing them in contests when you have to, you got the X Games 10 days away, and I really feel like this is your year. It's going to be 2017 all over again. You don't have to say anything to that because you don't want to curse yourself, and I don't want to curse you either. But what I do want to do now is get into something that I call inappropriate questions. To do this, I call somebody up that you know, and I have them ask inappropriate questions to you. I had a friend of yours and fellow Olympian Lyman Currier ask the questions this time around. And to be fair to Lyman, I don't think he knew that the segment was going to be recorded. So he thought he was giving me questions to ask you, but that's not really how it works. So the questions might not sound like they're directly to you, but they are. And I'm going to go with question number 1 from Lyman Currier.
You definitely have to ask how he ended up being banned for life from the MGM Grand Casino in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so my younger years I definitely spent, which I'm so happy I'm not that way anymore. My girlfriend has taught me so much and just some life experiences. Besides that, yeah, so when I was younger, you know, I'm a professional skier traveling the world, and so I was partying quite a bit. I had won tickets in a raffle that summer to go to the professional bull riding finals, the PBR bull riding finals in Vegas. And so if anyone who like really knows me, they know that my dream after skiing is to own a ranch, just live the full cowboy lifestyle. Like, I'm so about it. So I get these tickets. I'm so stoked. I wanted to be a bull rider when I was a little kid. So like, this is what I want to do. You know, this is sick. Like, we're going. And so my dad was traveling for work at the time, and originally it was supposed to be like my mom and my dad and I, and then we were going to just bring someone else along, like one of my friends, because my brother was in school, so he couldn't miss school. But we were going to all go as like kind of a family to go to the Vegas bull riding tour. And then my dad was like, yeah, I don't want to go because I travel all the time and I don't want to be gone for a week and leave from Vegas and go straight to somewhere else. So I'm like, all right. So I call up my friend Wing Ty Barrymore and Alex Ferreira and Broby Leeds.
Wing Ty Barrymore went absolutely fucking huge. I just have to say that.
Yes, absolutely. Biggest in the half pipe other than Joffrey. So I call them up, and Wing Ty is like the same kind of person that I am in terms of like when he's done skiing, he's like, yeah, I want to own a ranch, dirt bike, and just live the cowboy lifestyle too. So he's fired up. And then Alex was like, yeah, dude, I'm down. He's not that interested in it, but he was like, this sounds really sick, so let's go. So he's in on it, and Broby's in on it. And so we're all like, yeah, let's do it, you know? So we go to Vegas, and first night we go out and we're having a blast. You know, we're walking up and down the strip. We go to like the roller coasters, and we do the whole, you know, kind of tourist thing. And then the next night is the bull riding finals. So we go to the bull riding. That ends at like 8:00, and then we go back to the hotel and we're drinking and having a good time in the room. And so we decide to go downstairs and like walk around, and Wing Ty goes to the poker tables and he starts playing poker. I'm sitting there and we're hanging out, and then all of a sudden this random guy from Park City comes up to us and is like, noticed Wing Ty is wearing a full tilt shirt, and then realizes who we are, knows who all 4 of us are, big ski fan. So he's like, oh yeah, like, let me buy you guys some drinks. And all of a sudden everybody leaves. Well, Wing Ty is still at the poker table. He's like getting ready to be done and head upstairs. At this point, Alex and Broby had already gone upstairs, and I'm just hanging out watching Wing Ty gamble and hanging out with this guy that we had met. Next thing you know, Wing Ty just left, and 15 minutes after that, I'm just talking to this guy, wrapping up conversation. And some random person comes up and was like, hey, can I see your ID? So I give him my ID and he sees that I'm underage. And next thing you know, he's like, seems like you've been drinking, huh? And I was like, yeah, like in my room I did, but I haven't bought anything down here. So next thing you know, there's like 3 cops come up to me and the hotel manager, and they're like, how did you get drinks? All this stuff. It was just like what I thought was a normal thing. Like I was like, hey, everyone's drunk in Vegas, you know?
Yeah.
So next thing you know, I'm getting escorted up to my room. Everyone is just passed out. They don't even wake up when I come into the room. Then they're like, pack your bags. I'm like, what? It's 3 a.m. I'm 18 years old in Vegas. And all of a sudden I'm getting thrown out onto the street. And like, I got taken into the back room and they took a picture of me, and it goes straight into the computer system at the MGM Grand. And the guy goes, good luck ever trying to stay here again. And I was like, wait, what? And he just looks at me and he's like, you've been banned for life from the MGM Grand. I'm 18 years old. I'm like, what? Like, no way.
I think you should be proud of that.
Nowadays, it's a lot more of a story. But at the time, I was freaking out, you know, like I'm getting an MIP. I'm getting thrown out. It's 3 a.m. Like I already mentioned that. So I'm out on the strip by myself, walking around.
Wait, they let everybody else stay?
Yeah, everyone else has stayed up in the room. They were cool with it. So I'm just by myself. It's 3 a.m. I'm just like, whoa, oh my God, what do I do? I'm in tears because I got an MIP, like thinking like my dad's going to kill me. My mom's going to kill me. Like, what am I going to do? Like, this is so bad. Like, I'm an idiot. Thinking I just tossed my whole life down the drain. And so I'm just walking up and down the strip at the age of 18 years old. And like, I call my dad. He's like, what are you doing? And I hadn't told him that I was kicked out of the hotel yet. And I was like, well, I'm just walking up and down the strip right now. He goes, dude, it's 3 a.m. That is not somewhere where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, go back to your hotel room, get some sleep. We'll talk about this in the morning. So that's when I was like, well, here's the thing, Dad, is I'm not allowed back into the hotel. Like, I got banned for life. And he's like, oh my God, freaking out. You know, it's 3 a.m. and luckily my dad was in the East Coast. So it was 5 a.m. there. And so he was up getting ready to head to work. And then there's me who's just sitting there in Vegas. It's freezing cold out. I mean, cold for what Vegas is. It got to the point where there was just like bums everywhere. And I'm just walking around in such anger that I think people were like, this kid's actually crazier than any of us here. You know, and there's a lot of like drug users around there. And they're looking at me like, this kid is crazy. Because I was just so livid at myself, throwing my suitcase, like just body slamming myself into the wall, just pissed off at myself. So finally 6 o'clock in the morning rolls around and I'm like, screw it. I got to go get these guys. They won't answer the phone. I've tried the front desk to connect to their landline. No one's answering the phone. So I had my coat, my little like thermoball from North Face. I just put my hood on. I had a winter hat because I had come straight from a camping trip with them. Put my hat on, put my hood on, zip my hood all the way up, and I walk through, head down, go wake all those guys up. I'm like, guys, like, wake up. Like, we got to get out of Vegas. And I'm like, what, dude? All hungover. And all of a sudden, Wing Tai kind of puts it together. He's like, dude, what happened? And I just tell him everything that happened. And he just wakes everyone up, drags everyone downstairs. We had driven my truck out there. And since I wasn't allowed at the MGM Grand, he had to go pick up my truck. So he goes and picks up my truck from the valet, pays the guy, hops in the front seat, and just starts ripping us out of Vegas. And finally, halfway along the drive, everyone kind of gets some sense back into them. And I've been up, you know, with Wing Tide, just driving and talking, and he knew everything. So I tell Alex and Broby, and they're just like, no way. They were like, were you in handcuffs? I was like, no, I wasn't in handcuffs, but they made me sit on my hands behind the chair and just sit there. And I had to like tell them everything that happened. They were like, well, are we going to get in trouble? I was like, no, I didn't tell any of them that you guys were even around. So they're like, oh, you're a good man, Blunk. I was like, yeah, except for the fact that my parents are just going to kill me. So that happened. And then I ended up not getting the MIP, which was awesome. So I got away scotch-free from that. Nothing happened. Everything's all good. But it was definitely at that time, I was just coming back from a back injury, and I was like, wow, life is just going downhill right now. I got to turn this shit around.
Well, I will give it to Lyman Currier that was a great inappropriate question for number 1. We're going to jump into inappropriate question number 2.
Also, you got to ask about his wildest post-podium party, which was the X Games that he won. And yeah, he had a pretty wild night that night.
So that was crazy. I win X Games. I go home. I go shower. We get out to the bar because we always compete at night. So we don't really get home till like 10:30 at night. So by the time that all the press conferences, everything had wrapped up, I was like 11:30. I get home. I shower really quick. We go out. We go to Esco Bar because I had just won. And I show up, and I'm not going to mention any names of people, but snowboarder friend of mine, he's asking me, like, oh, do you want Molly? Do you want Molly? And I was like, no, no way, dude. Like, I'm not that type of kid. That's not me. I'll drink. I'll indulge in some weed every now and then. But I was like, that's not necessarily me as a person. And I'm telling him this. And then all of a sudden he just slips some Molly into my drink.
Oh, man.
Without telling me, which was horrible. I'm out having the time of my life. All of a sudden the bar closes, and it's like, well, let's go back to our place and we'll keep an after party going for a little while. My parents are out there, my brother, a few friends from Crested Butte that were there, and a bunch of the ski industry is there. And I'm standing there talking to my mom, and all of a sudden I just fall over. Everything had hit me at once. And I'm not kidding you, dude. I couldn't use my legs. And it was the craziest thing ever. So what had turned into my best night ever, I had won everything out of the bar. It was awesome. And next thing you know, I have no idea what's happening. I am so messed up. I had some drinks for sure, but I wasn't dying, it wasn't like I was blackout drunk or anything like that. I had no clue what was happening, and my friend told me what he did. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. I didn't think this would happen to you. And I was like, dude, I told you I didn't want any. What the fuck,
Yeah, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, and so the next thing you know, I'm literally army crawling to the bathroom, and I end up puking for, I'm not kidding you, 3 hours straight.
It's not a good look.
And it's not a good look. I'm sitting there puking my brains out, but at the same time, they're like, dude, you won X Games, you deserve this. This is what you should be doing. They have no idea what happened either. Thank God my brother was there, because he was the one who found out what happened. Because he asked the kid, he's like, did you do something to my brother? And he tells him, and my brother just goes, oh my God, okay. So he tells my parents, you guys need to go home. I'll get Aaron either back to his place and I'll stay with him, or we'll get him back to your place and I'll stay with you guys there. To my parents. And so my parents are like, okay, you sure? We can help you. And my brother's like, please leave. I'll be here for the kid. So my brother helps me out. Without him, I would have been so screwed, because I was just freaking out. Everything is not making sense. I can't even lift my legs up. And I'm like, dude, what are we going to do? So luckily, he's like, dude, just stay in our room. You're good. You can just sleep by the toilet. Everything's all good, And so it was horrible, dude. I woke up the next morning and I was just like, what was my best night ever turned into one of my worst nights ever. And I still, to this day, it's one of my worst nights ever in my life. Not being able to walk, not being able to move away from this toilet, just having my brother sit there and hold my body up because I was so messed up. I didn't have the strength to move anything.
That's a hell of a story. And I will say, man, I didn't expect much from Lyman's questions, really, because Lyman sometimes is hit or miss with me. He's kind of quiet with me at times, but he really delivered here. And we're going to go with his third inappropriate question.
So on the night of your birthday, your 19th birthday in Whistler, what happened with the bouncer at the door that we grew to know pretty well?
All right. So anyone who knows the ski industry and who's been to WSI obviously knows that WSI is just a free-for-all.
End of season party, throw down, do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's the end of the season. It's a giant festival in Whistler at the time. So the nightlife in Whistler is crazy. Like, it's huge. Everybody there goes out every single day. It's like the most insane thing ever. I had been to Whistler a bunch of times before at this point. And so I go to Whistler, and I had gone with Sean Pettit 3 nights in a row. And Sean Pettit, he is the biggest Whistler local there is. Everybody knows who Sean Pettit is.
It sucks walking through town with him because he has to talk to like 90 people.
Exactly. And so I had gone out with him and a bunch of other people like Dory and everyone who's in town, Josh Christensen, Schlopey, Lyman, Torin, like everyone who's in town. And so in BC, the drinking age is 19. And so my birthday was the last night in Whistler. And since I had been going to Buffalo Bills 3 nights in a row with Sean Pettit, they had kind of recognized my face just from being there 3 nights in a row. Same bouncer every single night, same thing, and Sean obviously knows every bouncer. So they just, let him in. So we were all getting let in for free and it was awesome, and I wouldn't say I was like partying. I was just going out to hang out with all the boys because end of the season wasn't going to see them till probably next November. And so my 19th birthday comes around. We had just left the AFP dinner and I go over and I hand the guy my ID and he goes, "Haven't I seen you in here the last 3 nights?" I go, "No, I don't think so." And he goes, "You've been coming in with Pettit and like a bunch of the boys." And I was like, "Nah, I don't know what you're talking about. I just got into town tonight." And he's like, "No, I'm pretty sure you've been here." And I was like, "No, dude, I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "Well, let me see your ID." He's like, "Oh man, happy birthday." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that." And then he goes, "Dude, I'm almost positive that you've been here." I was like, no, man. Nah, I don't think so." And so he hands me my ID back and I just look at him and I go, "I have been here the last 3 nights, but now I'm of age. What are you going to do about it?" And the guy just looks at me and he goes, "You're smart, but you better go inside before I beat the shit out of you." And I just go, "All right, man, I'm sorry about that." And he's like, "You're lucky you're rolling in with a good crew because I would not let you in here." And so that was how I spent my 19th birthday, and it was a pretty legendary night.
Nice, man. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This is a big month for you, and everybody should tune in because I think this is going to come out the Monday before the X Games, and the X Games is in 2 weeks, so it's going to be a huge night for you. I'm looking forward to you crushing it, and I really am excited to learn that you were the first one to do all 4 doubles because I did not know that beforehand.
Yeah, thank you, boss. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super honored and stoked. You're a legend in the sport, so it's great to talk to you.
Well, thanks, man. I'm no legend by any means, but thank you very much. So that was time with Aaron Blunk, and man, I'm a big fan of that dude. Before the podcast, I knew nothing about him personally other than he started competing young, and I was afraid that I would get a dude with no personality whatsoever, but I was totally wrong about that. And now I want Aaron to win everything this season based on what a good guy he is. You can tune in this week to see Blunk try for his second X Games gold. I know I will be watching. Until then, I want to thank you for listening, ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on, and thank the people who make this show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.